Ladies and gentlemen, on the line, I have Ken. What up, man?
Hey, how you doing, brother? I'm pretty good.
Good. Thank you once again for joining my show, man.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's go all the way back, man. Tell everybody where you grew up.
Okay, well, I grew up in the Cass Corridor section of Detroit, and anybody familiar with that area was bustling with prostitution, drugs. They got a Masonic temple not far from there where every top entertainer in the country would come and perform. So it was a diverse area I grew up in. And, I grew up in the projects. So it's like 5 minutes from the projects, but it's considered Cass Corridor area.
Okay. What was your upbringing like?
Well, the upbringing was diverse as well. Like my grandmother was a Bible thumper, so we got that part. I got a real strict Christian upbringing from her. My grandfather was a hippie. My biological father was in and out. But I knew him, and my stepfather was, cause when I call my father, he raised me and he was heavily into the drug game. And my mother was, a homemaker.
When did you personally, start to kind of get intrigued by the streets?
I was young, bro. I mean, cause like it was so much going on in that area. Like I'm saying that it was almost like you could not get into something. It was almost impossible. And I just recall my first glimpses of really getting into the street was probably when me and some of the little homies would go up to the gas station and pump gas for change and pitch quarters behind there, and just being able to make our own money at a time when Section 8 rent was like $9 to $15 a month. We making that every 2 hours as little kids, 9, 10 years old. So that was like what kind of got me intrigued into the entrepreneur aspect of the streets. Because my dive into the streets is more, I saw profitability in it more than just like a lot of the other stuff that came along with it, the violence, the gunplay, and all that came later.
The BMF series is, a pretty big show right now.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's an accurate portrayal, or about as accurate as it gets, of coming up in Detroit back in that time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to think you got a lot of young dudes that were, you got to think I was 11 years old. My father gave me my first pistol to carry because my mother had just been a victim of a robbery, And most of the dudes that I looked up to were probably 4 or 5 years older than me at minimum. And these dudes were driving lowrider Suzukis, spending big money on gold jewelry, new pair of gym shoes every day. And like I say, this is at a time when rent was no more than $20 in certain households. So you saw a lot of young dudes hop off the porch and get a lot of money real fast. And it's like every other person I knew was getting the bag. And a lot of the young dudes, a lot of the dudes that were older than me but still young were getting the bag from my father. So I saw it firsthand, a lot of that, bunch of money, bunch of dope in the house, bunch of guns, street wars, I experienced a lot of that firsthand.
Okay. Can you give somebody an idea of what Detroit was like pre-crack cocaine, before, when things were hustling and bustling, you had the car plants, and would you say that crack killed Detroit?
I would say that crack didn't help with Detroit's demise, but based on what I know about Detroit, a lot of what happened post the riots in Detroit, we experienced what they would call white flight, where a lot of white families left Detroit. A lot of black families, as far as business-wise, got shut down because of a lot of that money that left the city. And a lot of Chaldean families took over a lot of the businesses here. So we talking about there was a lot of money left the city, and that's what kind of helped with that. But crack will probably put the nail in the coffin. But before that, you got to think most of the families that came from southern United States came to Detroit to work in the automotive factories, And it was very lucrative. I mean, everybody that I knew either were driving a new car to working in the factories if they were older, or they was making money in the streets. And it was before crack. You got to think cocaine was still big and heroin was still big, and the white teas and the blue teas and the pill game was still heavy. So crack did nothing but change the drug and made it more accessible and cheaper. But the drugs had already been there.
Mm. You know, we don't hear much about the Detroit riot out here in Los Angeles, where I'm at. But to the best of your knowledge, what were the events that led up to that?
You know what? Historically, I wouldn't remember. But you got to think that was 10 years before I was born.
Okay.
So, like, I don't remember exactly what was going on. I do know that it was a lot of tension between blacks and store owners. You know, I most definitely know that just from recollection and what I heard. But like detail wise, I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate description of that.
Okay, it's all good. Did you ever join any gangs or street organizations?
No, that's a deep conversation when it comes to dudes that remember Detroit before the gang influx. Because coming up, the era I came up in, there were not any gangs. You didn't hear of gangs. You heard of dudes from certain streets or certain blocks or areas. So they'd say, I'm an East Side dude, I'm a West Side dude. I'm a Jeffries Project dude. I grew up in the Jeffries, what we call the Little Side, which were the like the standard townhouse size building. So, but the high rises were considered the big side of the projects. They were separated between high rises and low rises. So, so we would claim that I'm from the little side, you know, I'm from the big side. So we didn't get much of that gang activity until really after, say, the late 80s, early 90s, when a lot of the movies depicted gang culture. And then you saw a lot of back and forth between Detroit and other states like California, when dudes would migrate here for the purposes of shaking the bag or getting to the drug money. So I didn't have the opportunity to get into the gangs because they were not around, for one. And for two, my father was so heavily in the streets, bro, that I couldn't really do much without him finding out. So I was scared to death to do a lot of stuff.
Now, you started selling drugs, you said, at an early age?
No, I didn't sell any drugs until I was grown, bro. I had did a prison bid and everything. But what I did do young was I as a young dude, I would separate dope for the, you know, for some of the big homies that my father was putting. They would let me do what I wanted to do when he wasn't around. And then when I got in high school, I would make runs for my father, you know, just drop-offs. Like, you know, if you got to go to school today, you got to test. If not, you want to make some money, grab one of your friends and need you to ride over here, wait for this dude, give him this, count the money out, come back, you know. So that was like my thing in high school, what kept me ahead of the rest. You know, I kept a nice car, old school, classic car every year, you know, rammed up, sounds. But that came from, you know, being able to afford that stuff by making that money in high school. But it was always drop-off, never hand-to-hand activity or get my own sack until I started selling weed in my early 20s.
When would you say Detroit was just at its worst, where shit was just crazy?
Through my experience, that would have to been, wow. I would say the early to mid 90s. Yeah, it was bad because it seemed like the music, the movies, just the culture surrounding the street and the hip hop and the urban vibe, it was so reflective of what was going on, and it was almost like art imitating life and life imitating art on a revolving door. If you get what I'm saying, because it was like everything that, like, for the first time, dudes that were best friends growing up, I seen them shooting at each other in the 90s. You know, and then you would watch movies like Juice, and you seen dudes shooting at each other that grew up together. So it was coinciding at such a scary level that it was almost surreal. And I think that was like the worst for me, because I lost a lot of friends that I grew up with to gun violence, prison for the first time. All the dudes that grew up with me all went to prison for the first time, including me in the mid, around the mid 90s.
If you could put a number on it, how many years did you give to the system?
Roughly 10 years, a decade, between three incarceration terms.
Did it start in juvie, jail? What was your first experience?
No, my first experience, I went to jail a few times just because police harassment and little random stuff before my first term in prison. But my first term in prison was 97. I left the county jail the day after Christmas in 1997. Went to Jackson Quarantine, and I touched my first prison, which was Lakeland Correctional, probably around February, early February. Yep.
Okay. Is Macon Correctional in Michigan?
Lakeland Correctional Facility, yep, in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Lakeland, in Coldwater, Michigan, actually.
Okay.
Yep. But it wasn't. It's so crazy. Like when you first go to what they call quarantine or the processing, reception and guidance center, where they process you and figure out where you're going to be sent to, what level they got to house you in as far as security and whatnot. When you first get in that, boy, it looks crazy like the movies, because all you got is galleries or what they call like levels. You look up, it's 4 levels high, nothing but cells, nothing but gold and yellow bars and gray bars. And it's loud all damn day, bro. And it's crazy because it's so intimidating, because it seems like everybody's job is to do that almost, and then when you get to, like, Michigan is different because it's not as harsh as, say, California when it comes to like the violence, and you got to choose up and pick a side, right? But what's worse about Michigan almost is the mental anguish and the emotional anguish you go through in the games that they play on those levels with you. It's real harsh when it comes to that, And then you also still got the gang activity and the fightings and the slashes and whatnot, So, but that's one of the biggest things about being locked up in Michigan, just the pressure from the institution.
What was the worst thing about being locked up, if you can pick one ultimate thing?
Worrying, bro. Like, I'm a Capricorn, so if you know anything about Capricorn men, we are natural worriers. We worry about everybody. We always want to be there for everybody. So just not being able to be a phone call away from my younger brothers, my sister, my mom, that was something that bothered me. Just always calling home and almost holding my breath, bro. Every time I call home, I would feel like I was holding my breath just to figure out like what mood my mom or whoever on the other end was in. Because I would call sometime and you would get that answer like, well, I might as well tell you now. You like, oh, damn. You know what I mean? And there's some bad news behind that. So the anticipation of seeing what kind of mood my mother specifically was in was crazy, bro. I would go through so much of an anxiety attack until she answered and I heard her voice. And then when I would hear, I said, okay. But just like being away from family and missing moments and really trying to desensitize yourself to it, like, well, that shit don't matter. I don't care. You try to be so gangster about it, but it's like at night, bro, you go through it. You wake up in the middle of the night, you having dreams that you're at home. That's why I say that mental anguish is worse than getting up the next day having to strap up with a knife or some damn books or something.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad.
Wow. What percentage of people are behind bars right now because somebody snitched on them?
Wow. That's deep. Now, I would say it's pretty high because a lot of dudes that I run across, I would probably give it somewhere in the 70%. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because like most dudes that I encountered during my course of incarceration, and this is also with me facilitating certain groups and programs eventually, dudes, when they show you their paperwork and you see that pre-sentencing investigation and they letting you know about their case, it was often, rather, somebody that called the police. I don't care if it was a neighbor, their daughter's mother, somebody ran their mouth. Often. It's pretty high. And in the federal level, it's even worse because most of their convictions come from confidential informants. I actually got a good friend I grew up with who just went viral a few days ago because they accused him of making $2,000 a day running a marijuana dispensing vending machine from inside of his house.
I saw that story, dog.
Yeah, me and him grew up together.
What? I literally read that maybe yesterday.
It's so deep because, like, I shot him out in so many episodes leading up to a story that we still going to do it. And actually tomorrow I'm going out to interview him to get his story. But yeah, so you got to think like, yeah, that's relevant to what I'm saying because of what they saying. They saying that somebody tipped him off and saying he's selling guns and pills to minors. I'm like, bro, I never knew that man would sell a pill or a gun.
Wow.
So I know what it was is they just were jealous about him, period. He's just a good dude and he looks out for everybody and you know how to really be resourceful with his money. So, you know, but that right there is a prime example of somebody calling, you know what I'm saying? And the feds will tell you, hey, if it wasn't for this tip or that tip, we wouldn't have you.
Damn, man. I want everybody out there, let me talk to him really quick, OG Ken, for a second. I want everybody out there listening right now to my show to look at your homie sitting next to you. Go ahead, look at him. Look at that dude right there. Odds are if you and him are ever involved in a crime, because I asked that question, Ken, to most people who've done, you know, prison time, and the percentage is somewhere between 70 and 90. Odds are if you and homeboy sitting next to your homie, you're ride or die. That's my homie for life, man. If we go down, man, he ain't saying shit, blah, blah, blah. That motherfucker's telling.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, most definitely. And it will shock you and it'll hurt you. And you'll be like, man, this dude slept in my house. He hugged my kids. He ate out my food, you know. So, yeah. I mean, I've been in situations like that where this dudes that I met. It's crazy. I got told on in prison more than the streets, though. So when I got to prison, yeah, I got a lot of dudes that I looked out for. I was running a lot of stores. I probably ran a store, like started my first store like 3 months into my first bid. And every bid after that, I had a big store. And I always looked out for everybody.
Like just where you sell comments? So you sell stuff for a price or something?
So for the people who don't know what a store is, in prison, that's layman terms for when you loan and borrow product. People run out of money or they waiting on money. So you put a little tax on it and that's how you grow your store. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So, but then I had a point I was getting weed in real heavy and looking out for dudes. And it was dudes that I was passing joints out to every day during Super Bowl Sunday. Big cook-ups and all on me, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause we would do that. We would just cook up and feed the whole unit or, you know, pass out joints. Everybody go outside, watch snow in the rain and smoke one, you know, and it was a dude. It's funny. I just looked this dude up. I ain't going to even say his name, but I just found him in the system. I said, let me look this motherfucker up. And this was like 2000 that this happened. But I was thinking about that shit and this motherfucker told, and it's so crazy that the CO told me, he told when I got to the hole.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man.
He said, you know, that was the boy with the lump on his head. I said, she kept walking. I said, damn.
Wow. Damn, dog. There it is. There it is right there.
I'm talking about his mother, auntie, and girlfriend used to ride up to the prison to Macomb Correctional with my mother. And they used to stop and eat lunch on the way back and different shit like that, you know?
Listen up, kids. Straight from the horse's mouth, man. Why the name Retired from the Streets?
Well, that's it. So we used to always have a saying back in the day, I'm trying to graduate off the block. You know, I'm trying to graduate from the street. And, you know, I always felt like, you know, instead of graduating from it, why not just fall back from the streets? You know what I'm saying? Why does it have to be a next level outside? Because usually the next level from the streets is for real, and it sounds crazy. I know very few dudes who were successful in the streets doing bullshit who still around and successful. Most of them got jobs now. You know what I mean? Most of my dudes that did bids, that was getting money, that got indicted years ago, work jobs, drive high-lows now. So my thing was a lot of these dudes just retire. And it reminded me of Jadakiss back in the day when he said gangsters don't die, they get chubby and move to Miami. You know what I mean? So a lot of that was going on in my head when because initially it was going to be called Don't Forget About Me, but then it just didn't ring right with me. And me and the homie was talking one night, and I said, man, I like retire from the streets because I think a lot of dudes need to think about that. Like, what is your exit strategy for the streets? Like, you out here getting money, and not just the streets, because I broke the streets down as an acronym to mean the stress that robs the energy and emotion from the soul.
Ooh,
so that street could be,
that's deep,
you know, a lot of things. You know what I mean? So it could be a lot of situations that you're in that you don't want to be in that are unhealthy for you. But the streets was my main thing because I had such a fascination with them, and I think it's because I navigated through them so well, and I went through unscathed so much that I didn't, when it was time for me to go sit down and do a bid, it hit me like a ton of bricks because I was always getting away with shit, and I had a sense of entitlement. I felt like a lot of shit I did unnecessarily just to see if I can get away with it, and it came back to bite me in the
ass. The video that first caught my eye on your channel was a video titled "I'm in Love with a Woman Doing Life." Can you talk a bit about your relationship and what it's like being in love with someone who's doing life from a male perspective? We always hear it from a female perspective, but I think this is the first time I've ever heard it from a male perspective.
Okay, so real briefly, Barbara Davis, I met her about 5 or so years ago, just randomly looking up a homie whose last name is Davis. I was going in alphabetical order, seeing Barbara. That name stuck out to me because I've known several Barbaras in my life. So being nosy, I clicked on her image, and her face just stuck in my brain for like a week. I talked to my mother about it. She said, well, reach out to her. So I reached out to her initially for this writing program I had established for inmates to get their scripts and their movies out because I got a background in broadcast and video production, right? So I'm like, let's do that. And I just reached out to her, like, hey, I ain't no weirdo. I'm a regular dude. I've been there. I'm a street dude. I'm a real nigga, blah, blah, blah. And she called me about a week later. Now, I learned after we started talking, bro, it wasn't even about the program no more that I had asked her to help me with. I'm like, I know a ton of dudes in prison, but no females, so maybe we can get some of their stories out. So boom, we put that on the back burner because her story was so intriguing, and the reason that she has life in prison, and the judge and the prosecutor both are pretty sure that her father, they know, like, we know your father did it. You just never testified against him, blah, blah, blah. So me and her just got to get really back and forth, and I'm like, I got to help you get your story out there, and I got to really put you, But over the course of that time, that me falling in love aspect was not a intimate, not a sexual, not in a relationship, but her resilience, bro. Her when she called me after 20-some years in prison and still having life hanging over her head, she called me this morning, actually, because she couldn't catch me over the weekend, and she said I'm gonna wait for a few days. But she called and she get on my ass like she my big sister sometimes. Like, damn, you can't answer the phone. I'm like, damn, I be out here thotting and shit, so we joke. You know what I mean? I talk shit back and forth to her, and we got a real dope relationship for somebody that, and I just stepped out on faith, bro. I didn't know where this was going to lead. I didn't know she's going to be like, look, you weird, what the fuck on? I just was like, man, I never had an opportunity to reach back into prison and do nothing for nobody. And this was like after 3 prison bids. I did it a couple of times for homies that needed money, but I never just actively just said, I want to help somebody. You know what I'm saying? And then, like, so a lot of people was like, you clickbaited us. You clickbait. I said, no, that's not true. I said, I'm in love with this woman's soul. I'm in love with the spirit of her. She a great person. I met her mom, her family. I went to a rally in Lansing to end mass incarceration and a second chance look. And she always shoot me stuff, and I just drive to wherever it's at and support and bring my camera and network with people,
Love it. Let's talk about another video that caught my eye, but I didn't listen to it because I want to kind of get you to break it down. You have a series titled "Top 10 Rules to Being a Better OG."
It was funny because, like I said, this big dude named Sid who got a channel, he commented on one of my videos and was like, what did he say? He said, I'm the only real OG. And I thought it was funny. So I reached out to him. I shouted him out, subscribed to his channel. I watched a few of them. I'm like, that's funny. So I'm like, damn, a lot of dudes really claim that OG, like I'm an OG. And I never wanted to be like the OG. I got offended, honestly, when some of the younger dudes started calling me OG and old school in school. I was a young dude in prison for all these times. So going back to the joint and they calling me old school and OG. What's up, OG? It just was like, damn, I didn't say I'm an OG. They started calling me OG Kenny. So that's how it came. But I put together the top 10 rules, just like, just what I thought would have been, the top 10 rules. And like I said, number 1 was make loyal to your religion. Like watch the way animals are loyal to the pack and to keeping the bloodline, the sanctity of what they believe in.
Damn.
They don't really worry about individualism. They keep it moving. If one fall, they'll run back and risk them all a lot of times, or they got to keep it moving if it's a weak link. But I think that first one, making loyalty a religion, and passing that down to your whoever you call your little G's or your little homies, has to be paramount. So it went from make loyalty your religion to know yourself, because you got to know yourself first before you try to be an OG to somebody else. Be a great follower and learn, because anybody everything I've done as far as being a leader in a company or going from intern to running a company for a dude, I had to follow directions and be humble and learn humility first. Then it was always be elevating so you have something to offer. Lead by example. That's self-explanatory. Take calculated risk. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to take risks, but make sure you have a plan of action and an exit strategy for them. Be present and be mindful. Do what's right even when do what's right even when the opposite of that is more profitable. That was the initial title for that rule, but because you got to think the karma gonna always bite you in the ass, and you know what I mean. Always gonna massage your shoulder, one of the two, depending on how with the energy you put out there behind your action. They're gonna boomerang effect and butterfly effect back to you. And then it was number 9 was invest in the little homies. And that almost harkens back to the one that say, I think that was number 4, always be elevating so you have something to offer. You got to invest in the little homies the right way, because I've seen too many young dudes that used to come up to the laundromat I was managing for a nonprofit for years. And they used to, like, bro, put me on, man. You don't hit, man, come on. I'm like, bro, I'm working up here on the weekends at the laundromat, working on my projects, getting myself together, buying stuff in bulk, selling it on Marketplace. I said, I'm showing you how I'm doing it, and you still convinced that there's something else going on.
Yeah.
I'm not the one to talk to. Year and a half later, these dudes and gave them a sack. They shooting it out with each other. You know what I'm saying? They telling on each other because someone got caught up. So come on now. So invest in a little homies the right way. You feel what I'm saying? And then number 10 was like be a vanguard for protection and change. You know, you got to really be like, I remember growing up in the and they used to have, what was the dudes that wore the berets. I forget what they called. They were something like
the Angels. Help.
Yeah, they were something like them.
They were in New York. They were vigilantes, right?
It was something like them, and they had them, and they used to make sure we got in the house at night. So I'm saying, like, really, you don't got to patrol the neighborhood, but like protect your neighborhood, protect the people around you. I'm in the middle of Detroit, so it's real diverse over here. Like most of the neighbors over here right now are either Asian, Caucasian, and a couple of, I think, East Indian. But you got, you still have black families over here, but it's real diverse. And a few years ago, it wasn't like this. So, but I still make sure all my neighbors good. If they trash ain't taken out, they can get my snow blower in the winter. So protect your neighborhood, and that's part of that is protect the peace of mind and the sanctity of mind and from the neighborhood. You never know what your neighbor's going to. I reach out to them. I'm on the advisory board with some of them. They didn't even know it because I guess they like he's ghetto. He played that loud ass music and smoking his joints. I'm out here really in the neighborhood doing something with the community programs. And then my bonus one, number 11, technically, is keep the change, and that's like I throw that out there, let it marinate with people, and let them decide what they think that means. To keep the change for sure.
You have a video titled "How to Guarantee You're Going to Prison." Can you break that one down also?
Well, that comes from First 48, watching the First 48 a lot. And I remember telling the little homies, like, bro, y'all First 48, perfect. They like, what you mean? Because all the young dudes on First 48, they get them in there, they start talking to them, they break down crime, or they start just talking and running their mouth. I say, y'all forget the number one rule is that y'all have the protection of the Fifth Amendment. You know what I'm saying? The Fifth Amendment to protect you from self-incrimination. You don't have to say anything. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to, have a lawyer present. You have the right to a lawyer if you cannot afford one. I said certain things that as far as protection under the Miranda rights, bro, that y'all forget and y'all try to finesse the police by outsmarting them. Because the original title was supposed to have been "Stop Trying to Outsmart the Popos."
Yeah, because they've heard all your dumb answers. They've heard it all 500 times.
You go in there and trying to tell them, and like, so look, this is what happened. Wooty wooty boo. Instead of just shutting the fuck up, like just shut up. Like if you caught in the jam, just shut up. That's your best option. And that's why I'm saying this is how you guarantee you're going to prison. By running your damn mouth, going in there and trying to talk to you. And they'll come in there and be real conversational with you. And hey, man, the weather nice as hell. You been here, man. I know them girls, them big ass booty. You like the big booty girl. They get to talking to you. And they sound like your uncle, your auntie, your homegirl. And next thing you know, they offering you some shit. And then you talking. So why you do that dumb shit? Man, it wasn't me. It was Terrell. His dumb ass brought the gun out. And you like, you know. And then they try to act like it's going to be okay. And then walk out. And then an hour later, they come in there and cuff your dumb ass.
Man.
So, yeah. Yeah, but that's why that video was prevalent, because I was just talking to one of the little homies like earlier that day. One of the same little dudes that was getting into it with these dudes, and he was getting shot at, and he didn't have nothing to do with the shit. He was explaining that to me. Like, bro, I didn't have nothing to do with that. I said, well, you know, I have been telling y'all for the last 2-3 years, like, chill the fuck out, go get a little trade, grab a camera. I said, run around with me. I'll show y'all how to get a bag and be able to make $125 an hour easy working for nonprofits, taking pictures and videos, bro. What you doing? I'm like, yeah. I said, and then there's always kids programs, so ain't nothing but women. So why would you not want to come out, all these women?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Free food, and you making some bread, and then you sit down for 2-3 hours, photo edit, you know what I mean, and then shoot it to them through an email, and you didn't got your check. Come on, man.
Tell everybody where they can find you, what's next, and man, you can promote whatever you want now. The floor is yours, dude. Okay,
thank you. Well, right now, I'm on YouTube, of course, at Retired from the Streets TV. I'm also on Instagram at OG Kenny. That's O_G_Kenny. And also on Instagram, my Retired from the Streets TV page is at Retired from the Streets TV. You can find me there. You can hit me up. You can talk mess to me. You know, I'm open for suggestions. I love good energy. And I'm definitely looking to scale the channel into something that's more curriculum based. So I think that's our next move that'll be accomplished in the next probably 6 or so months. But yeah, that's our next move. You know, producing more content, getting more diversified with the content, being more consistent, and giving you more bang for your buck, and just appreciating the fact that people take time out their day just to tune in with me, bro. You know.